Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. And I am meeting you once again with lecture 20 of Drama 2, that is modern drama. In the previous lecture, we talked about different themes that emerge from Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. Today, we are going to have a more in-depth analysis of these themes, where we will be categorizing these themes into three big categories: social, psychological, and religious. However, before we do that, we will try to critically and analytically map what is the social significance that this drama carries, and then how it was accepted by the audience it was intended for. Later on, we will also discuss the themes in relation with dramatic references, so to let you understand how to substantiate your understanding and then statements. So let's start with our today's talk. In our previous lecture, we made a skeleton of the social acceptance, where we talked about what was the social acceptance as far as drama's plot is concerned, the drama setting, drama's theme, stage directions, and the use of language. So when all these things get together, combine together, and make a drama, what kind of acceptance it faced in the era when it was written. So today we are moving on with Waiting for Godot's first impression. Its first impressions of the type of drama against which Beckett reacted in his rejection of what he has called the grotesque fallacy of realistic art. That miserable statement of line and surface and the penny-a-line vulgarity of a literature of notations. That's what he himself thinks about the drama and states about the drama. In Beckett's work, there is a deep existential anguish that is the keynote of Beckett's work. We understand and we know that this drama is taken for its existentialism, and it is marked for high notions of this sort. And this is one of the masterpieces regarded in theatre of absurd. So this drama is known for deep existential anguish of the writer. Now regarding the public's lazy demand for easy comprehensibility, he said, here is a direct expression, pages and pages of it, and if you don't understand it, ladies and gentlemen, it is because you are too descendant to review it. You are not satisfied unless form is so strictly divorced from content that you can comprehend the one almost without bothering to read the other. This rapid skimming and absorption of the scent cream of sense is made possible by what I may call a continuous process of copious intellectual salivation. So when people complained, people talked about and they shared their concerns regarding the difficult comprehensibility of the drama, Beckett mocked this criticism, and he said that people have become so much selfishly indulged in their easy comprehension of the surface level intellect that is being produced, that they do not want to put any effort into understanding the form and content separately. They're so used to understanding both of these things standardly coherent and connected with each other that they have stopped understanding one after understanding the other, because both serve the purpose of understanding, giving a mutual kind of understanding. If you understand the content, basically you're understanding the form. However, here Beckett is throwing a challenge of understanding this drama in both directions, its form as well as its content. So on comprehension grounds, drama did face challenges, and these challenges were worded too. The form that is an arbitrary and independent phenomenon can fulfill no higher function than that of stimulus for a tertiary or quaternary conditioned reflex of gribbling comprehension. However, how Beckett sees it, Beckett's use of language and use of form that he gives to his drama is the attempt to communicate where no communication is possible. So we see that it's not only language that is used by Beckett as a medium of communication, it's almost everything that is put into the drama, no matter if it is plot, it is theme, its setting, its direction, its movement, whatsoever it is, each channel serves as a channel of communication. And that idea of form's arbitrariness, where it is merely used to stimulate for a tertiary or quaternary condition reflex of gribbling comprehension, it has evolved its nature, and form stands as a separate individual form of communication as Beckett's use it. All right, so then we see that for an artist like Beckett's, the only possible spiritual development is in the sense of depth. So what Beckett is concerned with the depth of reality. We see that modern drama, so far what we have studied, is all deals with reality of life. Here there is strong condemnation of arts for art's sake. Art is being used to reflect reality, to aware people regarding reality. However, how Beckett is different from the other contemporary writers in his art is that he does not only deal with reflection of reality, he deals with the depth of reality. And for that sake, you will find his art dealing with the paradox of consciousness apart, the platform where he uses theater of absurdity and as well as existentialism. The artistic tendency is not expensive but a contradiction. And art, the hypothesis of solitude. There is no communication because there are no vehicles of communication. So here Beckett talks about the artistic tendency. He says that it's not expensive but a contradiction of his work, and that art, the hypothesis of solitude, it comes out when you sink deep inside your own isolation and you get to know the inner self of human being. Only then you are able to produce the reality of life. So whatsoever has been produced so far basically was regarding what is apparent. It was a kind of reflection that exists. However, Beckett gave this existence a new meaning, and this meaning was going deep inside that existence and exploring not only its visible appearance, but going deep inside and exploring the existence of the phenomenon that is not visible to people. And that is where his study of consciousness starts its work. And that is, he called different vehicles of communication. That human beings do not only communicate with the things which are concrete, they more communicate with things which are abstract, which do not form things in black and white. For example, language produces words, actions produces meaning, which can be referred to and which are visible to people. However, the mediums which are silent in their nature, they communicate more than what these channels communicate. And that is what is conveyed by Beckett's work in Waiting for Godot. Now, Beckett's work was one of the first works to point to the fallibility of language as a medium for communication of metaphysical truth. So what we talked about, the existence inside existence, basically it's the metaphysical truth that Beckett promotes. And he says that the point he makes is the fallibility of language as a medium for communication, that this metaphysical truth that is not about the visible, that is not about the concrete, cannot be understood by a concrete and visible and very easily comprehensible medium like language. In order to understand the existence of metaphysical existence of this truth, the medium has to be compatible with it. That has to be something abstract, that has to be something invisible, that has to be something more than language at least. So, in Waiting for Godot, what makes it a work that is superior than other works of modern language is the extraordinary use of language. Anyone who speaks is carried along by the logic of language and its articulation. That is what promoted by Samuel Beckett in his work, and he says that when we speak words at a time that we do not intend to, we do not decide to. Thus the writer who pits himself or herself against the unsayable must use all his or her cunning so as not to say what the words make him her say against his will, but to express instead what by their nature they are designed to cover up: the uncertain, the contradictory, the unthinkable. And these lines are basically giving us the essence of how language, how the medium of communication is used in Waiting for Godot. So the play is of a difficult reception because it's so enigmatic, so exasperating, so complex, and so uncompromising in its refusal to conform to any of the accepted ideas of dramatic construction, whether this construction relates to plot, this construction relates to setting, characters, their movement, the story, a story as an organic whole, or language, or any of the standard mediums that writers have been using so far. It becomes so difficult to accept an altogether contradictory composition in form of a drama that is not only realistic, that is realistic in deep inside exploring the human nature. One of the best examples of how language is brought to the limits of signification is Lucky's speech, if you remember. That is how his speech reflects and performs the limits of speech by presenting almost a pure signifier at work, where the signified has slide under the signifier. If you remember how Lucky is made to talk, he needs a thinking hat in order to produce words, produce language, and when he has this hat over his head, he starts speaking without making any sense. Now no one knows what kind of sense he is producing. His words may be of some sense to him, however they are not understandable by everyone. That is what medium of language as a medium of communication is considered by Samuel Beckett, who finds it one medium of communication, however not reliable enough to be as only medium of communication. This limit situation of language is also revealed by the crosstalk, which prevent Vladimir and Estragon to become aware of their situation, and thus they attempt to escape anguish and suffering. Is the meaning of the play related to language or is beyond language? That is one question that all this discussion sums up with. What is the meaning of this play? Beckett once said, "If I knew, I would have said so in the play." So what have been said in the play and what is unsaid both carry equal meanings. So the question is comprehension. The question is acquaintance with the existence that Beckett tried to surface in his play. The crosstalk also provide a good example of the impossibility of language to communicate. In fact, they reveal the very failure of language, the limitation of this medium of communication presented by Samuel Beckett. So any endeavor to arrive at a clear and certain condition is difficult and always open to uncertainty, and this uncertainty that Becketts want to convey with this certainty that it exists, and basically its existence makes possible changes in human existence that cannot be presented by a certain medium of communication, that is language. Now, if we talk about the structure and circularity of this play, we find everything is moving in a circular situation, whether it's plot, its theme, its story itself, or the characters, or the reflection of characters. We find Vladimir and Estragon pair is reflected also as Lucky's and Bozo's pair. So everything and each and every aspect in the play is basically a circulation, is basically a reflection. If you talk about the form, structure and mood of an artistic statement, it cannot be separated from its meaning, its conceptual content, simply because the work of art as a whole is its meaning. What is said in it is indispensably linked with the manner in which it is said, and cannot be said in any other way. So whatsoever has been presented, whatsoever has been taken as a medium of communication by Beckett is considered the best channel of communication, because the unsaid could not be said in any other way. This is particularly clear in the circular structure of the play. There are many examples of this circularity. Now let us have a look at these examples to make our understanding clear about this aspect. For instance, the crosstalk not only has the function to pass time and neutralizing meaning, but also structurally functions in both acts. So it does the very meaningless events, and then these events which are circulated and reflected again and again, are not only serving to convey the essence of meaninglessness of life, hollowlessness of life, or purposelessness of life. They also are serving the purpose of structurally functions in both the acts. At the beginning of both acts, there is a tree, and the space is the same, indispensably barren and desolate. So when we are talking about the circularity of play, it's not only meaningless events that are being circulated, that are being reflected. If you find the static situation in the development of the plot, you will find a clear circulation in them as well. Both acts begin in the same manner, Estragon playing with his boot. So this very meaningless act is not only conveying the meaninglessness of the very act, but serving its purpose of structuring the functionality of the plot as well. Both acts finish in the same manner. Estragon, well, shall we go? Vladimir, yes, let us go. They do not move. Vladimir, well, shall we go? Estragon, yes, let's go. They do not move. So that is the circularity of the beginning and circularity of the ending as well. Both acts end with the same lines of dialogue, but spoken by the characters in reversed order is again an example of circularity. Now in both acts they attempt suicide but fail. In fact, the suicide is more a game than a serious attempt and allows them to pass time. Also in both acts, Bozo and Lucky appear, although in different circumstances. During the first act, Bozo is the master and Lucky the slave. However, in the second, Bozo is blind and therefore dependent, and Lucky is more his Lazario who guides him through the road. This static situation and circularity is also assured by the repetitive quality of the dialogue. A dialogue that does not communicate but simply fills up time and fills up the function of the structure of circularity. Now, if only we could discover some hidden clues inside drama given by the writer, it is felt that these difficult plays could be forced to yield their secret and reveal the plot of the conventional play that is hidden within them. Such attempts are doomed to failure. Beckett's play lack plot even more completely than other works of the theatre of the absurd. Instead of a linear development, they present their author's intuition of the human condition by a method that is essentially polyphonic, not at all linear. So, Waiting for Godot confronts its audience with an organized structure of statements and images that interpret each other and that must be apprehended in their ability, in their totality. Rather like the different themes in a symphony which gain meaning by their simultaneous interaction. These structures are circular, as is the weighting of the two tramps. So we have been talking about the circularity of structure in the play, and we try to substantiate our statement, our point, by giving references of different sorts. Now, rather than attempt to answer questions, we should attempt to see what questions are being asked. So, we try to understand the social acceptance of plot because of its lack of easy comprehension. What kind of acceptance did the drama face? Then what kind of setting circulations, what kind of thematic circulations, what kind of stage direction functionality, what kind of language use of as a medium of communication. All these things, but they have to do with the play and its structure and its social significance and acceptance that we have discussed in our discussion so far. Now, moving back to the philosophical background that we were discussing in our previous lecture, I wanted you to understand the kind of theatre of the absurd and the existentialism and the paradox of consciousness, not only as three themes emerging from the drama, but how they are apparent in their existing in each and every component of the drama, starting from the plot, setting, language, actors, theme, stage directions. In each and everything you will find these philosophies flashing vividly. So one very interesting categorization that I'm going to discuss with you is of the themes that we have already talked about in detail. Now, however, now we are going to talk about these themes as these are the reasons and these are the consequences as well. Reasons of absurdity and consequences of this absurdity in the play as well. So that is one very interesting feature. That is why you can see a cause and effect relationship between these themes. And these themes are shock and disillusion, alienation and anxiety, loss of faith and pessimism. And then there are also the absurd, the illusion of reason, the void, the illusion of faith, humor and the dignity of humanity, loneliness and love, desire of companionship. And all these themes are interrelated. Now, if we divide these themes under three main categories, we can get them as themes, social themes, themes of religion, and psychological themes. Now, what are those themes that come under such categories? Under social themes, we can have the theme of void, that is, life is meaningless, life is hopeless, life is something very hollow, life is purposeless. So, here discussing the existence of void in relation with the philosophy of absurdity, the philosophy of existentialism, and the philosophy of paradox of consciousness, you are able to put this idea under the category of social theme. Now, how the hope as a social theme is discussed in the drama. The hopelessness and cruelty of people, the hopelessness of society, and the hope of hope. Basically, it's hoping against hope. How this idea is ridiculed in this play is another very interesting aspect to critically analyze. Then the theme of reliance, social reliance, dependence of one human on another, dependence of one event on another. This this process or ongoing process of weight. One aspect is relying on other, one event is relying on other, one day is dependent on the day that is gone, that has become past. So basically it's the theme of reliance that combines things, phenomenon together, whether they are human and or they are non-human, whether they are the subjects or they are the objects. Everything is basically connected because of this theme of reliance that is very strongly projected in the play by the writer. Then the social themes include theme of time, timelessness, passing the time, the importance of time, the significance of time, the world as wasteland. The world is a kind of place that does not carry any significance. Then nothingness, lack of communication. Nothing is worth communicating or can be communicated, but we can stop talking. So the idea of language as an only medium of communication is highly ridiculed in the play. Then the oppressed and oppressor, somehow both are in same kind of pain. Bozo and Lucky, one who is oppressed becomes oppressor at another time. The Lucky carries his own whip. An oppressor and oppressed, they both are victims of their own wills and choices. That is another very important aspect associated with social themes. So in social themes we are seeing then there is theme of human impotence, human powerlessness. In the face of life's meaninglessness, human beings are finding themselves helpless, powerless, rather useless. Then a theme of static world, staticness, stillness, there's nothing happening, nothing happens whatsoever. Things are always the same, they remain the same, no matter what kind of efforts you are putting in it. Then absence of a traditional time, the standard measurement of time. There is no past, there is no present, and there is no future, because things are repetitive in nature and everything is happening again and again, if it happens at all. It's just a repetitive present. There is no past, there isn't any future. And then we see the disintegration of language as another very important social theme. Absurd exchanges, broken and fragmented dialogues. It all talks about the disintegration of language, the disintegration of medium of communication that is relied heavily by human beings. Then this idea basically is very closely related with the idea that we are going to talk, and the last theme is the lack of communication. This is basic theme of social theme that talks about the human communication. Use of paraverbal language, mime, silences, pauses and gauges. That is introduced as these devices are introduced as different other very important significant mediums of communication by Beckett, since he ridicules the use of language as the only medium of communication for its very concreteness, for its very understandable and simple medium of communication that is not compatible with the you can say that complex aspects of human being, of human psychology rather. This makes us move on to the psychological themes presented by Beckett. Although we have talked about all these themes earlier in our previous lectures, however, today we are categorizing them into three main categories, three dimensions of Beckett's philosophy. So, in psychological themes, there comes in loss of memory, loss of meaning, loss of past, because there isn't any past, there isn't any future, there is only repetitive present. Lack of self-awareness. You do not know what do you want. You cannot make any choice. You don't even rely on your own memory and on your own knowledge. Our cosmic insignificance, another very important psychological theme, and the pain and curse of consciousness. Not knowing is blessing and knowing is blessing too. So it's a sharp conflict between consciousness and unconsciousness. And then we have some religious themes. No personal God, no religious reliance, no savior, no redemption, and that is what the religious understanding of the modern times is. Now, we need to understand that basically waiting for Godot is waiting for nothingness. And waiting for Godot does not tell a story, it explores a static situation. And this is the central question. Waiting for what? What are you waiting for? The play, it is not about Godot, but about waiting. And this central theme determines all the others. So basically, the central theme of the play is waiting, and waiting for nothing. So when we say that waiting is a central theme, another sub-central theme is nothingness, that basically and eventually becomes a central theme. So this central theme, waiting, will be a recurrent reality within the play. One that it seems to remind Vladimir and Estragon why they are where they are, in no man's land, in a land where there is no other human being exist, and that Beckett's call a representation of world and humanity. We need to collect some references from the text in order to substantiate our statements and our understanding. For example, Estragon says, let's go, and Vladimir, we can't. The inability, the stillness. Estragon, why not? Reasoning. Vladimir, we are waiting for Godot. Logic, for no reason. This is very contradictory. Now Vladimir, let's wait and see what he says. Estragon, who? Now he forgets who they are waiting for. Vladimir, Godot. So the uncertainty, self-unawareness, and not knowing what is to be done, and whether what is being done is reliable or worth doing or not. Estragon, simply wait. Vladimir, we're used to it. Now, Estragon, let's go. Vladimir, we can't. Estragon, why not? Vladimir, we are waiting for Godot. This is again coming up as a repetitive dialogue, and you will see it throughout the play. Estragon, what do we do now? Vladimir, while waiting. Estragon, while waiting. Repetition for no reason. Estragon, let's go. Vladimir, we can't. Estragon, why not? Vladimir, we are waiting for Godot. Vladimir, yes. In this immense confusion, one thing alone is clear. We are waiting for Godot to come. How big confusion this is. Who are they waiting for? Or if they are waiting, or if it is Godot they are waiting for? or if Godot has to come. And how clear this confusion is basically the major contradiction in the play. Estragon, let's go. Vladimir, we can't. Bozo, what is he waiting for? Vladimir, what are you waiting for? Estragon, I'm waiting for Godot. So, do you see this apparently nonsense exchange between characters, but how full of sense this is, because this is giving you the meaning behind what Beckett wanted to convey, the nothingness, the waiting aspect of life. That was one of the major characteristics of that era, the confusion, the confused era, the chaotic era we talk about, that is between two world wars. So what becomes evident is that both of the themes, theme of waiting and theme of nothingness, are tied to Godot. They cannot but wait for him endlessly. Godot then becomes the only hope for survival. He is the one that controls their lives, human lives, and the only possibility of redemption. They can only be saved by Godot, and therefore waiting until his arrival is a fate. However, this becomes clear in several places in the text. Estragon, we are not tired. We are not. Estragon, I'm asking you if you are tired. Vladimir, tired? Estragon, tired. Vladimir, how do you mean tired? Estragon, down. Vladimir, but by whom? By whom? Estragon, to your man. Vladimir, to Godot? Tied to Godot, what an idea, no question of it. Being tied implies that their lives are totally and irremediably dependent on Godot, and salvation is his decision alone. Vladimir, we'll hang ourselves tomorrow, unless Godot comes. Estragon, and if he comes, Vladimir, we'll be saved. So, this nothingness, this endless wait, is giving birth to timelessness, giving birth to void. Waiting as the central theme of the play leads the two characters to avoid time and make the waiting bearable by filling in time with futile actions. They are aware that there is nothing to be done while waiting, and this becomes an obsessive statement throughout the play. First is the awareness that there is nothing that can help them in their waiting, and the void and anxiety then, this has to be confronted, and this is restated time and again throughout the text. This nothing to be done aspect, this endlessly wait, will become the second most important theme of the play, that there is nothing to be done, there is nothing to pass time, and this theme comes out of the timelessness of the play. And example of these themes are dramatic references. Estragon, nothing to be done. Vladimir, nothing to be done. Vladimir, nothing to be done. And the same is said by Estragon again. Estragon, in the meantime, nothing happens. Estragon, nothing happens, nobody comes, nobody goes, it's awful. Vladimir, we have nothing more to do here. Estragon, nor anywhere else. In the entire world, there is nothing that you can do. Estragon, what do we do now? Now that we are happy? Vladimir, there is nothing we can do. What will we do? What will we do? There is nothing to do. So this nothingness, nothing to be done theme, it is critical for them to fill in time, which will also becomes the third most important theme of the play. Filling in time, passing time. It will travel throughout the entire text, becoming the obsession of the two of them. Not only two of them, rather four of them. Here are some examples of that. Vladimir, yes, The two thieves. Do you remember the story? Estragon, no. Vladimir, it'll pass the time. Vladimir, what do we do now? Estragon, wait. Vladimir, yes, but while waiting, Estragon, what about hanging ourselves? Hanging ourselves, this is used as an ironic action. Although they don't talk about they only talk about their decisions. They are not kind of beings who would make choices, and if they make choices, they'll act upon them. So this idea, this lack of choice, lack of freedom of thinking and then action in activity, stillness of life is ridiculed. Vladimir, I hate passing the time, Estragon. It would have passed in any case. Vladimir, yes, but no so rapidly. Vladimir, we could start all over again perhaps. Estragon, that's the idea. Let's contradict each other. So contradiction but no reason. Logic for no reason. That wasn't such a little canter. Vladimir, no, I mean the boots. Estragon, would that be a good thing? Vladimir, it would pass the time. I assure you, it would be an occupation. So, futility of action. We always find something, Didi, to give us the impression we exist. So in order to be aware of yourself, your existence, you need external assurance. Estragon, then it'll be day again. What will we do? What will we do? Vladimir, we could play at Bozo and Lucky. Vladimir, how time flies when one has fun. Vladimir, what about a little deep breathing? Little deep breathing is again significant here. Deep breathing is a sign of relaxation, and relaxation is considered fun here, and it is then signified that how time flies when you have fun. A diversion comes along, and what do? We let it go to waste. Come, let's get to work. To try him with other names, one after the other, it would pass the time. So they do all the activities possible to pass the time. Passing the time, filling in time, avoids thinking about their present. Absurd condition. Vladimir, we are in no danger of ever thinking anything. Vladimir, what is terrible is to have thought. So thinking is avoided. Bozo and Lucky, Godo and God. Many interpretations have been provided about Bozo and Lucky, and most are wanting. However, there are some basic questions that must be answered. Why Bozo and Lucky are in the play? Why in the first act their presence lasts for almost half of the act? Now, after discussing all the themes, categorizing them under three main categories, and then discussing the 2 or 3 major themes of the play, waiting, timelessness, and basically waiting for nothingness. These are 3 major aspects emerging out of text. We need to understand the presence and significance of different types of characters, and now we are trying to understand Bozo's and Lucky's existence in the play. So far we have been talking about Vladimir and Estragon. So it is not enough to say that, let's say as Martin Esslin does, that Bozo and Lucky represents materiality and spirituality respectively. I believe that Bozo is Godo, and he functions as a material development of the 2 tramps' dependence. This is said by Esslin. In the first act, Bozo has in fact tied Lucky to him. What a rope that allows him to control Lucky. It's with a rope. In the second act, Bozo is tied to Lucky. Does this suggest that Bozo is a creation of Lucky? And that gives Lucky a status of creator. Does Lucky then represent Vladimir and Estragon and therefore humanity? Bozo comes and goes. He never reveals who he really is, and with his departure leaves Vladimir and Estragon waiting forever. So all themes are basically interconnected. Waiting, nothingness, waiting endlessly, these characters, their reflection again it moves back to waiting. So some of these conclusions that we can draw after this discussion: it is in the act of waiting that we experience the flow of time in its pursuit, most evident form. If we are active, we tend to forget the passage of time. We pass the time. But if we are merely passively waiting, we are confronted with the action of time itself. As Beckett points out, there is no escape from the hours and days, neither from tomorrow nor from yesterday, because yesterday has deformed us or been deformed by us. The flow of time confronts us with the basic problem of being. So very being is questioned, very existence is questioned. Waiting is basically to experience the action of time, which is constant change. Bozo is blind, Lucky is dumb, and yet as nothing real ever happens, that change is in itself an illusion. The ceaseless activity of time is self-defeating, purposeless, and therefore null and void, nothing at all, nothingness. The more things change, the more they are the same. The tears of the world are a constant quantity. For each one who begins to weep, somewhere else another stops, says Bozo. So again it seems to be concerned with the salvation. Godot, who does not communicate with us, cannot feel for us and condemns us for reasons unknown. So the waiting for Godot is concerned with the hope of salvation through the workings of grace, seems clearly established both from Beckett's own evidence and from the text itself. But the act of waiting for Godot is shown as essentially absurd, essentially silly, and suicide remains their favorite solution, favorite time pass rather. The failure to commit suicide leads them to rationalize waiting. I am curious to hear what he has to offer, then we'll take it or leave it. That is the only hope left with them. So, in this view, the hope, that habit of hoping that Godot might come after all, is the last illusion that keeps Vladimir and Estragon from facing the human condition, the basically chaos of the human condition that they are in, and themselves in the harsh light of fully conscious awareness. For a brief moment, Vladimir is aware of the full horror of the human condition. The air is full of our cries, but habit is a great deadener. At me too someone is looking, of me too someone is saying, he's sleeping, he knows nothing, let him sleep on, I can't go on, what have I said? So at times he makes sense, but then he again gets into the self-unawareness, the realm of self-unawareness. The routine of waiting for Godot stands for habit, which prevents us from reaching the painful but fruitful awareness of the full reality of being, of existence. Vladimir's and Estragon's pastimes are, as they repeatedly indicate, designed to stop them from thinking, avoid rationalizing, avoid making choice, avoid action. We are in no danger of thinking anymore. Thinking is not the worst. What is terrible is to have thought. So, the hope of salvation may be merely an evasion of the suffering and anguish that spring from facing the reality of the human condition. And this is the play all about. It does not provide answers but hints that we should accept nothingness, but should give you teasers of thinking, but questions about life itself. And then these questions are posed to audience. Let them think and answer. So the very action that is embedded in this inactivity of life is think. In this there is a clear relationship to the existentialist philosophy of the time, That is from Jean-Paul Sartre. If for Becketts, as for Sartre, human beings have the duty of facing the human condition as a recognition that at the root of our being there is nothingness, liberty, and the need of constantly creating ourselves in a succession of choices, then Godot might well become an image of what Sartre calls bad faith. The first act of bad faith consists in evading what one cannot evade, in evading what one is. So, what we discussed in today's talk is basically we try to analytically map the social significance of the play, of the one of the best plays of the theatre of the absurd and existential writings, Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. And in order to do that, we also categorized different social, psychological and religious themes presented in the philosophical background of the theatre of the absurd, existentialism and the paradox of consciousness. And in doing so, we try to take some dramatic references out in order to substantiate our statements of understanding regarding these themes. So it seems that today's lecture helped us understand these themes completely, and the next lecture we will be ready to open up to conclude our talk on Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett, and to open our talk for George Bernard Shaw's excellent work of reality that is known as Pygmalion. We will try to understand what is this myth of Pygmalion behind the play, what is the contextual background of the play, what is George Bernard Shaw's philosophy of writing as a writer of modern drama, what kind of plot is there in the play, in the drama, what are the characters, what role are they playing, what relationship these characters share with each other and with the major themes of the drama, what kind of conflicts are emerging and how significant they are. And then in the light of that, we will try to find some themes and the major conflicts embedded inside the play, which basically hold the spirit of the play. It was all for today. I am glad that we are almost done with our third text of modern drama, that is Waiting for Godot. This was one of the most difficult plays of modern era, since it deals with not only with the theatre of absurd but the extremes of theatre of the absurd. This writer is known for his high techniques and superior kind of writing belonging to its genre. So that is why this drama, since it deals with the reality of life that is not so very beautiful, not so very tasty and not so very thrilling, we feel a bit down. It was a kind of little boring kind of discussion. However, we understand that this was very important because it had to deal with some kind that is not very happy in its nature as well, that deals with the sorrows of life, that deals with the reality of life, that is certainly not very beautiful, and if beautiful, not all the time. So, however, we need to keep our fingers crossed that the next play that we are going to do is going to be an excellent play with a lot of entertainment inside, and I will try my best that I am able to provide some visual glimpses of the play as well in terms of video clips, and I'm arranging for it, and definitely that will add into our into the excitement of discussing this drama. So let's look forward to Pygmalion, and after this lecture you should be ready for your second sessional, and you should be ready with your understanding of a new piece of art by George Bernard Shaw. So I will ask you to start your reading and make sure when you attend the next lecture you are almost done with your first reading. By this, inshallah, I will see you next time. Allah Hafiz.